Losing at chess sucks, and sometimes you know that you can actually play better than you're currently doing. Now in this video, I'll be telling you what I've used to move from an average chess player to now a FIDE master, guys. Meaning, stop thinking average and thinking above the rest. What the 1% of chess players do that the lower rated players don't know. I'll be going through a game explaining my thought process, the tips in which you need to start implementing in your games to skyrocket your elo. So with no further ado, let's get right into it. No, anybody can actually learn theory, but what do you do when your opponent is literally playing something you've seen for the first time or not as used to? All you need to do is rely back on principles. The more he's doing dubious stuffs, stick to principles. What are the principles? At least, again, center control, minor pieces developed, and king safety. Now, this is going to get complicated in a little sec, but this is a good thing to keep in mind when you're starting out the phase of the game. Get pieces to good squares. Now, I also want you to take note that I am putting a bishop in a super aggressive formation. Right now, this is putting immense pressure on the white side of the board. And by me doing this, it's going to be very difficult for my opponent to make normal moves. Just to show you an example, if he proceeds with knight to f3, already black is winning due to knight to g4. I am now having two attackers in my opponent's area of the board. A lot of low rated persons would fall for things like this because they don't understand the ideas of like when a position is truly dangerous. No, whenever there is a piece looking at your side of the board, you want to get it off. So in the game, my opponent played bishop to e3. I could even take the time out to go a little bit more in depth with what happens here. So what happens when you're playing chess and you're getting attacked? Remember, get rid of the attacking pieces. Now, this is just to show you, if it doesn't matter how much white tries, the more black adds aggressive players to that area of the board, you are going to lose. So here my opponent played bishop to e3 instead, and this might give some persons anxiety, but don't worry, I'll break it down. Doubled pawns are weaknesses, yes, but not in all scenarios. Now, right now, all white is doing is simply getting his pawns doubled, but removing a piece from attacking in his half of the board. And to show you how decent this is, I didn't even take the bishop. I allowed him to double my pawns instead. Now, for persons that struggle with chess understanding, this is going to sound like strange news, and this is why I'm here today. Now, if you can't attack something in terms of like putting a lot of pressure on a specific weakness that you'd have created, then it's not as weak as you think. All right. So for example, if white captures my bishop on c5, how is he planning to get to this pawn here? Like, even if you give white like some moves, or like if he even attacks it, just giving you like something completely way off the bat, it is really easy for black to defend. And as you can see on the bar to the left side of the screen, black is already winning. I'll go more in depth with this later down to give you guys a much more deeper understanding of what's happening. But take a bigger look at this pawn on d3. If you're creating weaknesses, you want to ensure that you are able to attack it. You're able to exploit the weakness, put pressure. You want your pieces to have access to the weakness that you have created. Now, in the game, he played now knight to f3. This bishop has again blocked out the access I had to f2, and I still took the time to play knight to g4. I am putting pieces in my opponent's half. No, for again persons who are just starting out, this is not something you want to practice instead of like moving the same piece twice. I am doing this simply because it comes with tempo, right? What is tempo in general? It's like a free move. It's like your opponent has to respond to you. So even though I'm wasting time moving my piece twice, he's gonna have to do the same thing with his bishop, right? I am putting pressure. Like if white does a normal move, I am able to capitalize on white's mistake. So instead, he played q to d2, so he's responding to me. I am having the initiative. My moves are coming with threats. I took the time here to, again, remove the bishop here off the board. And this is also something that you guys need to know as well. Bishops are worth more than knights. Now, at the lower levels, this is not commonly discussed. It's not something that you're going to take too seriously just yet, but it's something you want to keep in mind for later down in your career. Bishops like open lines. So, what is my opponent trying to do? He gave me the bishop, but at the same time, the center is really locked down with pawns. That's what you can use to know whether a center is closed or open. If there's a ton of pawns in the center, there's a high possibility that that center is, again, extremely locked. And if there's no pawns in the center, that center is completely open. So I played a4 just to stop any more expansion of white's pawns. No more space, all right? So he went now bishop to e2, trying to finish his development. And this is what's going to actually catch most people by surprise. King to h8. No, this is for everybody. I just stated that bishops are worth more than knights. Now, if I place my bishops on like random squares, the knights are going to outpower my bishops because the game is going to be closed. If you have bishops, we need open games. If you have knights, you need closed games. So it's like vice versa. Now, for most persons, the reason why they choose bishops is because in most scenarios, it's a lot easier to open the game than to close it. So here I played king to h8, and my opponent made a huge mistake and played pawn to d4. No, even though you're looking to the left side of the screen and Stockfish is saying that this is completely okay, from a human's perspective, this is something you want to avoid 100% unless it is completely justified. All right? Don't practice this at the lower levels. You're building habits. Don't practice bad chess. It will shape your career. Trust me. Even for me right now, I had to like unlearn a lot of bad stuffs to really start getting points the right way in which I had to. So I simply got my bishop back to b6. To take is a mistake. You guys know this rule. So I am not planning to fix my opponent's pawn structure. By me putting my bishop on b6, the same thing or the same question is asked to my opponent. If taking anything in chess puts you in like a worse scenario, like it worsens your pieces, your structure, it's something you want to avoid. Now, by me taking, I am fixing his pawn structure. By him taking on e5, he is breaking the tension and worsening his structure. This is what you need to do when playing chess. You want to hold the tension as long as possible, and each move you make, you want it to be benefiting your position. So just to give you an example of what this looks like that e3 pawn is going to be on pressure, under pressure for like the whole game. We won't go too much in depth on that as yet. I could cover in like a separate video on how to attack weaknesses, but in the game, my opponent played this move knight to d5. And this is indeed a good move. It's putting a piece in my area of the board, and this is where I want you guys to be alert. He's attacking my bishop. I know that I have the bishop here, so I simply preserved the bishop. And why? Because I am planning to open the game. So he played b4. This is literally where the game started to go south. He is not prioritizing his king safety. And this is where most persons are going wrong in chess. They don't truly understand when their king is weak. So by me putting my king on h8, I have successfully prepared this move pawn to f5. Now, I'm going to even go more in depth. Because the king is in the center, you want to think about it as removing the shelter. So I could play a move such as like pawn takes d5, sorry, pawn takes d4. It's anything that is like removing the pawns in front of the king. Same thing if the king was castled. Whenever you're attacking, you want to start removing the shelter from the king. So if there's no shelter around the king, that's what you can actually use to tell or guide if that king is weak or secure. So in this game, I played pawn to f5, and this is going to bring us to, again, another topic. After white played this move, pawn to b5. Now, by me playing pawn to f5, this is what I mean when I'm saying that you're opening up the game. Now, for most persons playing chess, they would lose faster than they know it. Plus, they would not even understand the amount of opportunities they had in the game because they didn't take the time out to capitalize on this. If white takes on, what's that, f5, I would have simply pushed e4, and he's already packing up back the board with his pieces. This is simply, again, opening up the center. So you want to push back your opponent's pieces while getting your pieces active. He instead played, again, pawn to b5, and what we're going to be discussing right now is what we call the counter attack. For me, I call this don't play chicken chess. If somebody attacks you, you don't want to be the puppet. Don't practice puppet chess, chicken chess, where somebody is basically controlling you. They're like, hey, move your knight. And you're like, yes, sir. And then it's like he's kicking you all around the board. You need to take control over the game as much as possible. The more control you have, the more you can actually decide or actually steer the game in like a direction of what you believe the result can be. The more control you have, guys, the more you can actually know what the result of the game is gonna be. So here I took on e4, and I am now I'm now telling my opponent to respond to me. So he wants my knight to move, and I'm like, no, you move your knight instead. Persons would know this as danger levels. So basically, you want to counterattack with a piece that is of the same value or more than what is getting attacked for you. So in other words, if somebody is attacking your bishop, you could look for a counterattack on his queen or on his rook, or of a piece of the same value, king, anything, or knight. So he took on c6, and I took the time to capture on f3, giving me again what we call a tempo move. Time. It's like he is forced to respond to me. Takes, and now I recaptured on c6. Knight back to c3. And remember, what are we doing with it when a king is in the center? We are removing the shelter. We are opening up the position. And it is still, again, using tempo. He is forced to respond to me. Initiative. Alright? Now, because the shelter is removed, we can start looking for aggressive ideas. Now, a big mistake I see persons do in chess is that they play too much on automatic moves. And even though this is good depending on the level that you're currently at, it is very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's gonna like really slow down like your growth, because you're not giving yourself a chance to improve. If you're playing the same thing over and over again, like the first thing that comes to your mind, how are you giving yourself a chance to look for something better? Right? So here I played q to h4. Now the king is both weak on the file and on the diagonal. Now if you're just practicing to play the first thing that comes to your mind, you will not look for better. See a good move in chess, look for a better one. This is how you improve. You need to force yourself to be better than you are currently, and you do so by taking time out and looking for better. So he went now king to d1. Again, I can actually take the time out here to capture on d4. That pawn is going nowhere. It is patience. I am looking at all my pieces. I've said this in my past videos. Activity is the law of chess. If you don't have active pieces, doesn't make any sense. Bishop to g4. I am putting pressure on that bishop, forcing again white to respond to me. Whenever he has a weak king, you need to look at the entry points. Like, how can you get access to that king? Right? The more you can remove the defenders, the key defenders of that king, you start to get access points to attack. Alright? In the game, he played king to c2, and only now I recaptured on d4. So in the attack, I now have 1, 2, potential 3, not even potential, it's already there. 3 attackers in the play to checkmate the white king, and I'm currently threatening to win the queen with rook to f2. So he took the time out to play rook to f1. I also want you guys to take again a big note of how initiative is being used. The minute you believe you have an attack, don't take your foot off the gas pedal. You need to again make your moves come with threats. Every single move has to have tempos, moves that are forcing your opponents to respond to you. Now here he played rook to f1, and this is the biggest takeaway I think you guys are going to have to use for this this video. Stop trading your active pieces. Unless you're full on converting, don't practice it. Trade your passive pieces. If you're having aggressive pieces in chess, like ask yourself, why am I winning this game? In other words, if you're winning because you're up like a pawn, like you have a material advantage, like common knowledge, if you give up the pawn, you will no longer be winning. If I am winning here because of like the weakness of this king, then I need to keep the pieces on the board that is still again giving me my advantage. I played rook to b8, so now I still have it. I have 1, 2, 3 potential attackers against that king, and by me keeping the pieces on the board, this game finished in, I don't know the exact moves, but it wasn't long, like maybe 3, 4, who knows. But rook to b8, keeping the pressure. I am not giving up my attackers, guys. Keeping the pressure, and after rook to f4, remember what I said about access points towards the king, the diagonals. And yes, my opponent played q to d3, and after q takes g2, he resigned. Now, how could we understand what's happening here? By me keeping the pieces on the board, the game did not last another 100 moves. You want to keep the pressure. Understand initiative. Alright? Just to show you some more, I want you guys to keep practicing. If you see a good move, look for a better one. If your first instinct is to take on a1, that is not how you improve. Look for better moves in your opponent's half of the board. You're going to have to train yourself to spot this. You could have blind spots to move like this currently, but if you train it the right way, right? Now we're seeing the pin, you will start to see better moves. Now, thanks again for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this, and take care.